Welcome to Behind the Play, a video and podcast product of The Hoop Show that explores the lives of Geelong players past and present, as well as the off-field figures that are keeping us Geelong strong. My name is Paul James, and today I have the great pleasure to chat to one of our absolute guns of the AFLW, Claudia Gunjaca. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Pretty well, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I know we've kind of had a little bit of a chat pre-recording, but it's a thrill to have you here and really excited to have a chat.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me. Pretty excited to have a chat too.
How is this off-season period going? Because it's obviously, I mean, with the women's season kind of ending at the time that it did, and then the resume date being quite a way off, it's this weird limbo-y sort of period, I'd imagine. I know lots of people have other employment and those sorts of things as well. But what is this period for you like at the moment?
Well, it's kind of a little bit of a break from the amount of hectic life that goes on when footy season's on, but it's still very much the same, really. Like, we're still working at the moment, so back doing that sort of full time, and then just training and stuff, still trying to keep fit over the off season and catching up with people, but probably being able to have time to catch up with family, friends, all that stuff. Enjoy the Christmas period and all that. So it's been good.
Yeah, good. In terms of the pre-season, the off-season, that kind of down period before the season actually begins, in particular that pre-season period, you hear often get discussed that as a really tough sort of period. I get the whole time when you're not necessarily playing, because it's even longer for the women's comp. Does that make it better or worse that, in terms of that preparation time, in terms of that, as you say, kind of keeping yourself fit and that maintenance that goes on in the off season? Does it make it better or worse that the gap is even longer than, say, the men's comp?
I think it's a bit personal preference, really. Like, I find it really good because usually battling through my body by the time the season's ending, and so I get that chance to sort of rehab my body and get it right, but then also get myself fit and do the things that I enjoy and want to get better at, and really hone in on like the skills that you want to get better at as well. And it just allows you to have that bit more time to do it and not have to rush it as such. So I guess I really like it, to be honest, to have that bit of downtime, but also be able to work on yourself and give yourself that bit more time and not have to rush things. So I personally like it, but it does feel long still, though. Like, it feels like a long time till we're playing again. So you feel like you're constantly training, really.
Which, again, to your exact point, it's a bit subjective, can be good and bad depending on the person, how that all plays out. So I guess before we kind of get back to more of the modern day stuff and exploring your game, exploring everything that you've been doing, the interest in footy in the first place, where did that all begin? Was it always there? Were there some influential figures in the family that kind of guided you towards football in the first place? You grew up supporting the Cats. You were a local. Where did it all begin for you?
Well, quite late, actually. I never played juniors or Auskick or anything like that. I actually played tennis for almost, I reckon, 15 years. So that was quite a big chunk of my life. And then I've always loved footy, though. We'd been members for so long, so Geelong members, and so we'd go all the time in the footy. Mum and Dad would take me and my brother, and I'd be constantly kicking in the backyard with my brother, pretending I'm Cameron Mooney or something.
Does that include the wild fist throwing as well, or?
Yeah, probably. A fair bit of punch-ons with my brother too, I guess. I've always sort of loved footy, but never really had the opportunity to play. One, because there wasn't really much to play as a female, and then two, I was playing tennis, so I didn't really want to injure myself or jeopardise that at all. And then went to uni and decided I just needed to make friends there because I was going to La Trobe. And decided to start on the women's team, and it sort of went from there, really. I loved it, ended up doing okay at it. So, yeah.
In terms of, I guess, being actively a participant in sport, what was it that attracted you to tennis initially?
My mum actually played, and she'd have me in like the little daycare upstairs, and I'd sit upstairs and watch her play. So I think that's what got me. What's got me into tennis, but probably too, like, you could see a future having that. Like, I would idolize Maria Sharapova and things like that, and you can actually see a future in that. So you have something as a kid, you always want to be like a sports person or something. So you have something to strive for, I guess.
And to your exact point, the the AFLW system wasn't a thing at this particular point. So to that exact point that you're trying to make, if it doesn't feel like there's an end point for any sort of love for this, then naturally you don't consider it as a viable option.
Yeah,
I guess
exactly.
in terms of those experiences as a supporter of the Cats, you obviously got to see a few premierships along the way.
I did.
Do you have any particular memories of the likes of 07, 9, 11? Obviously, 22, you were part of the club at this point. But what were some of the memories like of those years?
I remember still so much of 07, 9, and 11. I could tell you like everything about it, where I was on the day and whatnot. But just like
You're more than welcome to go for
it. Well, 07, we had all our family over. I didn't get to go to any of them until the one recently, but we had all of my family over who are all diehard Geelong, and we just had a huge day. I think. Well, I wasn't old enough to drink, but everyone else definitely did. So that was so much fun. And then we'd go to the family days and the parades and whatnot. And it's amazing to see like Cardinia Park all full as well with the family day. And then 09 and 11 were just as good, I reckon. And I think the St Kilda one for me was probably the most daunting one. Like I remember being so stressed for that.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. But then obviously the most recent one has been pretty special, like to grow up going for that club, but then you get to be a part of it as well was pretty awesome. So.
And what is it like being very fresh to the club at that particular point in time? But it is a club that you've supported all your life, and then they've gone. The men's team has gone on to win the premiership in front of you. What is it like to be a part of all that?
Well, it was pretty awesome. I remember that like entire week, or even the weeks that they were in the finals leading up, just being an unreal vibe around the club. We were sort of mid-season at that point, so training and things was just awesome. And then we were on a few away trips when they were leading up into the granny, so a few of their prelims and things. And I remember sitting on the bus, and we all had our phones like stuck in the bus seats.
I think I remember seeing some videos from the bus, if I recall, that hit social media afterwards.
Yeah, well, we were going nuts. So it was so cool. But that whole week, that lead up to the granny, I remember just being so special. We played on the Thursday night. We ended up smashing St Kilda, played an awesome game. And then, so that just led us into the week full of fun.
Wave of momentum, and it worked out.
Exactly.
It's obviously an incredible feeling for any supporter or anyone who supports a club that goes on to make a grand final, but to be actively a part of that club at the time, especially a club that you've loved your entire life, there's another layer to that I'm sure very few will ever get to appreciate. So I'm sure it's awesome for you to be a bit a part of.
Yeah, it's pretty special.
And so we touched on the tennis component there. When did things start to shift for you to become where footy became a viable option? Now, of course, you've got a career in physiotherapy as well. You well and truly qualified and do a fantastic job in that space. I think it's important we kind of wade into that realm as well, because you've done lots of study in that space. You mentioned Latrobe but when did footy start to become a viable option for you, do you think?
Well, obviously when I first started at Latrobe, it was kind of just to meet people and have a bit of fun with it. I think that might have been the first year AFLW had actually started up, so it was very fresh, the whole comp. So again, it sort of wasn't in my like headspace yet. But then as a couple of years went on, the AFLW comp kept growing, but I ended up moving to Sydney to study because that was my number one priority at that point. I was definitely trying to get my career. So, but just prior to moving to Sydney, I was training at the VFL Cats, did a preseason with them. So I guess at that point I started to think, I could probably pursue this. And then in Sydney, the first year I was there was pretty just like it was whole new city for me. I had no one over there, moved up there on my own. So I was just trying to find my feet. So what better way than to join a footy club and meet about 40 people again?
Of course.
And then, it was great. And then I ended up having a decent season that year, and then really loved the team I played for. And I played at UTS Bats. So I went to UTS, the
Yep.
uni. So I played for their team there. And then I did get a call up for a little bit just with the Giants like training squad, did a bit of training with them, and then had another good year the second year that I was in Sydney. And that's sort of when I got a call from Ben Waller and things like that to see if I wanted to come back home. So, yeah.
And I guess when that call arrives, was it a very easy answer for you? Because to your exact point before, you initially went up there with other intentions. It's about career and making sure that something you really have a great passion for that you follow through and are able to enter that industry. But then when this call comes through, that is a curveball. So what went through the head initially when Ben gets on the phone?
Well, firstly, I knew I was like my studies were done by then. So I was actually making that call of whether I was going to live in Sydney or back home. I loved it up there. So I was actually contemplating, staying there prior to any calls or anything like that. So, but then, I got a call from Ben, which was more about playing VFL and like going back to that and seeing how I go with that. And I think from that point, because I had trained with the Giants and still didn't get picked up that next year, and it just felt like I was constantly like doing pretty well, but no one seeing it or trying
no one was biting for some reason.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh gosh, maybe I should go home then. And, where people know my name a little bit already. And I had done well in Sydney. So hopefully that sort of transferred down a little.
Of course.
And then, so I think then I applied for a job like that day back home, just online, and ended up getting it and whatnot. So I made the call to mum and dad to be like, I think I'm coming back home now. So it was, and it's an easy decision because you're going back home, I guess.
Yeah.
And I knew I wasn't going to be in Sydney forever. So I definitely enjoyed my time there, but I was very happy to come home as well.
Now, Cats fans know you as a wonderful defender, but early days through the VFLW, there it was a forward, and 6 goals in the VFLW there, and I guess was the forward line always the initial goal, or was there experimental? I guess what was the thinking early days?
Well, I'd always, prior to that VFL season, had always been centre half back. I had not played any other position prior to that.
Yeah.
And then I think I spoke to Andrew Bruce, who was our coach at the time at VFL, and basically told him that my intentions, I really want to get drafted and I really want to do well this year, and how best can we utilize me to give me a chance at getting drafted and getting picked up. So he thought that putting me forward would add a bit of flair, I guess. And at that point, Geelong needed a forward. So I guess that's why I went forward for that period. And then obviously played the first season of AFL forward, and I didn't get many games, and it was pretty tough that first year. But then as soon as I moved back, I don't know, it kind of felt like home.
No, it makes a lot of sense. Again, it's something you're very familiar with. It goes back to the whole argument about home in the first place, the idea of home, and you've got a home on the field too, and you excel in it. So why not enjoy that time? Is there ever still the temptation to just drift forward from time to time and see if you can hit the scoreboard? Just to give everyone a reminder that you've spent some time up there and you know your way around it.
Oh, I'd love to, but Dan won't let me move past the bloody halfway line. So I'll just have to stick to my position for now. As long as I'm on the field, I'm happy.
I guess, it makes a lot of sense. In terms of, I guess, joining the AFLW team and really getting established, what was that first game like? Because it's taken a while, and there was a road up to that point, and challenges along the way, but then finally getting to make that debut. What was that occasion like?
I remember that lead up, so that whole preseason being very stressful. Like, you just don't know where you sit. You don't know, are you going to get a game? Are you going to get the first game as your first game? Or I just remember that lead up being very stressful, very exciting, but also quite stressed every week. And then when I finally got that debut game, I think there was a big relief as well. But I remember being so nervous that game. Like, I couldn't breathe in the warm-up. I was so
This
stressed.
was North Melbourne, correct?
Yeah, in Arden Street. So, but I had all my family, all my friends there. So it was was pretty special. I don't even think I got a disposal that game, which is hilarious. But
I can. I
um,
don't know. I don't know if you want me
it
to.
was,
I can check the stats. You
it was
did.
zero.
You did. You did.
Oh, I got one,
You
maybe.
got the one handball. One handball.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, but I'd done a lot of
The two frees
contests
against.
stuff. So yeah, well, I was happy with my contest work and that, and I guess that's why I got a game
Yeah.
the following week as well. So, but yeah, it was a big relief, but also it was quite stressful that whole lead up to it because you don't know where you sit. So
Yeah, of course. And unfortunately, and I guess across the games in that first season, there were no wins to be had. So it was a bit of a rough start there. But of course, the 2022 season was there was 2 seasons within it, as it was kind of a strange year in that regard, and so your second season there, much more successful. Obviously, we could see kind of, I guess, the core of what ultimately amounted in 2023 really starting to take shape. So I guess casting an eye to the beginning of, I was going to say the next season, specifically in this instance, game against Richmond there, round 1, and the win in pretty epic fashion, if memory serves. What was that like to I guess get the first win?
That's probably one of my favorite footy memories I've got so far, I reckon, is that game. It was pretty awesome. Like, we come back off off a season that we struggled a fair bit with, but then I felt like over that preseason of the next season, everyone sort of really worked hard, and we really worked hard on our team connection as well. And so I felt like that finally was put into place a bit more that next season. And then, so to be able to get that first win just sort of gave the tick of approval of all the hard work that we had done that preseason, and that we started to finally gel as a team, I think, which was really cool.
But to also get the win in such spectacular fashion is pretty good way to start as well. With
it was pretty awesome.
That was Georgie's goal, the siren, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the crowd was incredible that game. I loved it. It was so cool. So yeah, I loved that game.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't able to attend that day, but I was watching it from home and saw the goal, and then I must have watched that replay, especially once the social teams kind of got a hold of it and started putting it up. I watched that final couple minutes time and time again because it was an amazing finish to a game.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I reckon I've watched it a few times too.
And then, so I guess getting a full season there and a lot more wins on the board as a team, but also individually, how did you reflect upon that season? Because I think, and the observation you made there about that team connectedness, I think was really apparent, at least to myself, and I'm sure many other people watching and listening to the show as well, that it did feel like something clicked. So how did you reflect upon that season that then kind of, I guess, guided you towards an even more successful season in 2023?
Yeah, well, I guess that season 6 when we didn't have many wins at all, and and we sort of felt like we lost that team connection. I think we really just looked back, and I remember Dan saying that we're a team that's building and we're hunting down above us, basically. So we really just made sure that we just went with the process, didn't look at the outcomes, but made sure we looked at the process. And I guess that's what we've been doing this past season just gone as well. Take each game as it comes and not to look too far ahead. And I guess that's what we did. And we, had to change things and our game plan as well, and we sort of become a more attacking team, which is awesome, which is what we really struggled with in season 6. So I think just changing our game plan, increasing our team connection, and then just trusting the process, I think, is what made for a more successful season.
And then for you individually, I think a lot of people watching or listening would probably agree that 2023 in particular was a really big breakout year for you individually. You'd obviously contended with some injury prior to that, and you kind of alluded to that before in terms of managing the body and those things in the off-season component of things, but also there was a long layoff there with injury. I think it was pelvic related, if I recall.
Yeah,
I guess contending with some of those injuries that come with the game, especially kind of the nature of that one being a little bit more mysterious for a while. How do you grapple with all that when it's an injury that you can't quite get your head around? You're not 100% sure what's going on, and then the impacts that it has.
I think the thing I struggled with the most was being a physio and not being able to know what was going on with my own body. It was doing my head in a bit, but it was a pretty weird injury. I ended up having like a pelvic stress fracture in the end, and so it was funny because just like everything really hurt. So but I am really big on just trying to play every single game that I can. And being a 10 game season, like you miss a couple of weeks, you've already missed a
It's almost
quarter of the
half a season.
season.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I just sort of pushed on each week, and it would take a whole lot for me to not play. So, yeah, I just sort of pushed on every week, but I did notice the difference then when I had that sort of off season to help rehab it a fair bit, and then coming into this most recent season, just being able to move a bit freer, and being able to put in a bit more, kind of helped with my performance as well, along with other things. But I think that was a big thing for me, and being able to get fit as well, because I was barely getting through trainings and things. I was just making it to the game every week. So, I think being fitter across the board also helps as well. And then I was able to kick pain-free, because even kicking was an issue. So just all that stuff, like I couldn't work on my skills and things because everything was painful. So, giving it that time to heal and then being able to do that stuff now, I think, is what helped me this season for sure.
And obviously you allude to the physiotherapy part of it there, and obviously the challenge that I guess maybe posed to you personally through because of the professional lens you had as well. Managing that career as well as an AFLW career, how has that been? Because I guess anyone kind of the medical industry, it's a very demanding job, and it's not to diminish any other profession as well that have their own demands too. But it is a very demanding job. You've got lots of clients that are relying on you. There's all sorts of bookings and appointments and those sorts of things that go with it. But of course, you may be battling a bit of your own health through footy injury, or you've got training or matches or travel for match, whatever these circumstances might be, team meetings, etc. How do you make all of that work? Because I can imagine, again, especially considering the industry, that can be a real challenge at times.
Yeah, I do find that being the industry that I'm in, the most challenging thing, like, is to balance that. And I'm really lucky. I've got a super supportive workplace and a super supportive boss who, whenever I need to travel or take time off for games, it's pretty easy to do. But it's my own guilt with like my own clients and things. You've got to change their appointments constantly. They're relying on you. But, you might have a finals week that you don't know when you're playing or anything. A training night might get changed because you're playing on a Sunday or so most of our year is pretty structured in terms of training and that. So I kind of have a pretty structured work routine as well. But then when it comes to games and things, that's when things can get a bit iffy. But you just balance it. Like, you just do it. It's a hectic period, like a hectic 6 months for me. Like, I basically wake up in the morning really early, go to work all day, go straight to training, get home maybe like 10 p.m. and do it all again. But a lot of people say to me, do you love it? And I always say yes, like, because I wouldn't do it if I didn't love it. It's just too demanding. So there's no way I would do it if I didn't love it. So yeah, you just make it work.
That's great to hear. And obviously, I think with any industry or combination of industries, if people are kind of working multiple jobs, there's that communication layer. And I guess when you're working with clients, I'd imagine, I presume most of them probably know full well that you're involved in the AFLW. And so there are these variable components. And so I guess a lot of it just boils down to that dialogue and being able to work with them having that understanding. And I assume that's largely gone pretty smoothly for the most part.
Yeah, my clients are fantastic. They are super supportive. I reckon we speak footy all the time, really, because they're always coming in and asking how I went, or they watch my game, or some come to my game. So it's pretty special. And they're super supportive as well. Like, whenever they get the call saying that we need to change your appointment, they're fine with it. So I'm pretty lucky in that sense.
No, that's awesome, and really awesome. I guess you spot them in the crowd from time to time.
Yeah, sometimes I do, actually. So it's good.
It's pretty cool just to have that support popping up whenever and wherever. And I guess on the topic of support, we've seen, I think, the growing numbers and the growing support for the AFLW as a whole, and even just within the Cats. We just looked at it. It was very anecdotal, but we were looking at like social media data and those sort of things, and kind of the engagements with club posts and those sort of things, especially around finals year to year. And you could just see this explosion in the amount of support and positivity, and it feels like the attendance as well. What are you noticing on field across the weekends at the moment in terms of that constant growth and support from the community.
Yeah, it's amazing. Obviously, like when we were playing our season, like the crowd numbers were great, and just being at Kardinia Park in general, I felt like this year, our home crowd was really awesome and coming out in numbers, which was really good. Obviously, there were some games which, like a Friday 5 p.m. game, which makes life hard for people trying to get to that. But for most part, we had pretty decent crowds, and that was pretty special to hear on the field as well, because they make it sound like a full stadium when there's quite a few of them, which is really good. And then I think just even this off season, I'd be out for coffee with one of the girls, or we'd be going out for lunch or having a hit of golf or something, and people will congratulate us on our season and things, which we probably haven't had so much in the past. So it's pretty special. Yeah.
It does feel like with each season, the stadiums get just that little bit more full with each year, which is awesome to see. And I mean, you say, it sounds like the stadium's full. Well, it feels like the way the momentum is headed for the competition and for the Cats specifically, it's only a matter of time before the stadium is full on a week to week. And personally, I'm really excited for that, and I'm sure any player would be too.
Yeah, it is very exciting. I hope it heads that way.
So I guess since joining the club, you obviously, you speak about your experience when you head up to Sydney, there's 40 new people to meet, and obviously joining an AFL club, there's a whole range of new people you get to meet as well. Working in a particular part of the field as well, the backline, you obviously get to work with a specific group of people. I guess, is there anyone who's really like that relationship's been really strong from straight out the gate, or anyone that you've really kind of grown to pair up with really well when it comes to the way you play, but training, on field, off field, all those sorts of things?
Yeah, I think there's a few people that I have quite a close connection with that have helped me with my journey through footy as well. Liv Fuller, we both got picked up together as mature age draft picks. So we played VFL together and things like that. And she is also not from Victoria as well, and she's a little bit younger than me. So I kind of I don't know, try to act like a big sister sometimes and look out for her. But we also work together as well. She's a myotherapist at the same clinic. So we spend most of our days together, which is pretty fun. And then Chantal Emerson as well is a big sort of influence on my footy career, I would say. Just the way she goes about her training. She's very elite in her mindset, and she's an amazing person off the field as well, and would do anything for anyone. And I have quite a close and special connection with her as well. And being in the back line too, it's nice that she's there also. And then Meg as well, like our skipper, I get along with super well. We sort of had similar journeys, I guess. Hers was in tennis as well, and I didn't start till a bit later too, and things like that. And her journey didn't go just like smoothly as well. So I have quite a close connection with her, and I think she's an incredible leader and someone I probably look up to a fair bit as well in that space too. So I'd say there's like our whole team I love to death, and there's not one person I would hate to be seated next to. So it's an amazing team, and we're pretty lucky to have the people that we have in our crew. But I think that comes from our leadership team and from the club as a whole.
And of course, one of the cool things about any sport, is especially team sport, is that there's a new group that is coming through with every passing season. And so obviously we've had a few new girls recruited to the club in recent months as of when we record this. But of course, it is a natural part of the game. And so in terms of, I guess, some of those leadership components and those sorts of things that you get to take on as a key pillar of the Cats, but also for any new player who's coming through and potentially up that end of the ground as well. How do you, is there anyone that you feel like you've really worked with closely in terms of, I guess, being what the likes of Meg and Chantal were for you when you first joined? Similar sort of story for anyone who's come through. Is there anyone you've been able to kind of take under the wing a little bit and work with?
Yeah, I think for me, like the first 2 seasons for me starting, it was kind of like me trying to find my feet and work out, connections with people and things like that. So it was probably last season I felt like I had a really bigger step up in that sort of leadership sense. And so, yeah, the likes of obviously Liv Fuller, I try to take care of pretty closely, but then Gabby Featherston as well. I have quite a nice connection with her and like to help her out. And I think she's such an amazing player, but just lacks some confidence in her own self and her own skill set. But I think she's incredible. So just trying to get that out of her and trying to build her confidence as much as I can to make her the best player that she can be as well. But yeah, just trying to help everyone out. But you definitely have deeper connections with some people that you want to sort of take under your wing as well.
No, that's awesome. We were talking about the community aspect before, and I guess there's one other pillar that I think is really important that we discuss as well, which is the Read the Play and the mental health ambassadorial role that you've got there. I guess for anyone who's watching, listening, maybe is not aware, we might start at the very top there. If you're able to just, I guess, talk a little bit about what that is and your involvement in it in the first place.
Yeah, so Read the Play is a youth mental health program, and they utilize like the local sporting competitions and clubs to help bring out the message of mental health and to like avoid that stigma around it. And the younger you get kids talking about it, the better off people are. And as we can see already, in current society, we speak about mental health a lot more than what we did many years ago. So it can help people in a lot of ways. And so I guess that's what the Read the Play program is designed for. And reason I got into it was being Geelong local, I've always been around, the sporting teams and things. So it's always been, a thing that I've been aware of and have always been a part of too myself. So I guess it was pretty special when they asked me to come on board because, I really think it's an important program, especially amongst the youth, where I think people might lack in being able to talk about that sort of stuff. So, it's pretty special to be a part of, and I really enjoy my role as ambassador there.
It's one of those many things that you're doing, but many things that you're doing incredibly well. So I guess speaking on behalf of, I guess, the community and everyone you work with, I think thank you for everything that you've been doing in that space. It's huge and much appreciated by many. And to your exact point too about, I guess, the introduction of these things at an earlier age. We were talking just before the recording, like I'm a teacher professionally, high school, and so teenagers, I think hitting them at that point with this information is just so valuable, and being able to send the right messages and break down these stigmas, it's hugely important. And so, can't speak highly enough for you and anyone else who's involved in these sorts of programs that is supporting people at any age, but specifically I think about that demographic as well as being an unbelievably important one to get right.
Definitely. Yeah.
So casting a bit of an eye towards 2024, we know there was a little bit of, I don't want to try and be respectful about it and dance around too much, a bit of heartbreak in terms of the way the season ended. I won't ask you to inject your opinion there, but I've got mine and people have heard it, so I'll just leave that. I'll leave that there in terms of how things ended. Casting an eye forward, being a little bit future focused to 2024, there, the goal for you personally, but also as a club. Now, I feel like the club one is a little bit more straightforward. It's go one further and come away successful on that final day. For you personally, though, I guess any particular aspirations and things that you've got kind of at the forefront that you're targeting? You would have those exit meetings and those sort of things, I presume. So there'd be maybe some KPIs and sort of things that are identified at that point as well.
Yeah. I guess for me, I see each season like I've slowly built in a more positive way.
Yeah.
And so I really, I still do really feel like I'm not close to my potential yet. And so I guess that's an exciting thing because you can, you're always looking at ways that you want to improve, and you know that there are things that you can definitely improve on. So for me, it's just, trying to keep getting better each season. It's so cliche, but I just don't feel close to my untapped potential yet. So I guess I really want to see if I can take this next season a bit further again, and hopefully even closer to my potential and have another solid season. I think I read the play a lot better this year, and my positioning and intercepting was a lot better this year. So I think that's something I want to just keep progressing with and keep going and try to make an impact by intercepting it maybe up higher the ground this time.
Yep.
but working within our defensive unit to do that, because it doesn't just come down to one person. It's everyone plays their role, and that's why people are able to intercept or get the disposals that they can. So for me, I think it's just, keep continuing to build in that space. And you still want to keep getting fitter, faster, stronger, all that stuff as well. So always work hard on that in the off season too. So yeah.
And we won't tell Dan, but we'll add popping on between the sticks down as a little smaller guy for you.
Yeah, that would be good.
Especially if, to your point, kind of that inception further up the ground is a factor in it. Well, that provides opportunities, right? While still playing your role and not getting too carried away. So it'd be a nice little cherry on top, I guess, if it works out in that space as well.
Yeah, that would be nice.
So I guess as we start to wind things down, you've got this wonderful perspective of being within the Cats system, but also having been a long-time fan of the Cats. So in your eyes, who's the greatest Cat of all time? And I do use that word greatest because it kind of gives you some scope to talk about playing ability versus leadership versus the combination of everything, whatever it might be.
Oh God,
who's the greatest Cat of all time in your eyes?
That's a great question. Well, I think everyone would probably have the same answer and say Joel Selwood. I think he obviously leadership outside of footy, outside the club, off the field is incredible, and I don't think you can find a better human in that space to do that. And then on field as well, I remember I used to grow up watching him and just thinking he was the most courageous player I'd ever seen. So the way that he could back himself into a contest, and yes, all the head traumas and things aren't good, but but I thought he was an incredible player in the way he put his body on the line, and obviously his leadership from such a young age as well, I thought was incredible. So I would definitely say him in my eyes in terms of the whole scope of things. But then you've obviously got Gary Ablett, who was unbelievable.
Sensational,
on field, and then
both of them.
But then you've got your defenders like Harry Taylor and things who I loved watching as well. So, and then Cameron Mooney.
Natural bit of bias towards that end of the ground, and I don't blame you in the slightest.
Absolutely. Yeah, Matthew Scarlett, used to love watching him. So, probably top answer is Joel Selwood, but there's plenty.
Yeah, you're right. And there's so many different ways you can spin it too. I mean, greatest can be greatest on field, it can be off field, it can be the combination that's really up to the individual and how they perceive it. So totally understand that one. Next one, I guess, pertains to the Ablets, as we just kind of discussed a moment ago. You're building a team, and you've got Gary Jr. and Gary Sr. standing in front of you, and you get to pick one of them. I guess whoever's standing alongside you is going to pick the other. You're building a team. Which way are you going to go? What's more valuable to you? Because they obviously played very different roles.
Well, my dad would tell me probably senior, because he watched every game and tells me all the time about how he kicked how many goals and all that sort of stuff. But I obviously wasn't in that era, so obviously I'm going to have to pick Gary Ablett Jr. And he was incredible when I was a kid, and I remember when he had the blonde locks, and I loved him. I thought he was the best. So
and then he came back and they were suddenly gone.
Pardon?
And then he came back and they were suddenly gone, all those locks.
I know, right? I know.
But he was a magician no matter what. So
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'd pick him for sure.
I guess for the Cats fans going forward, they've seen an exceptional season from the women. What I guess for the next group of players that are coming through, and there's a few people that made debuts over the course of the season. There's others that are still developing their craft and are making their way up. Who should people be keeping a close eye on going into the 2024 season? Which feels like a harsh question to ask because we're so far away and there's a lot of water to pass under the bridge. But is there anyone that you just feel like is ready to maybe explode this season? Maybe still played all year last year, but is just ready to have that big breakout season? Anyone in particular?
Obviously, like the way our team's going, I think we've got some really talented players that are probably ready to hit their breakout season. But the way I see it is probably, obviously she plays well every season, but Nina, I think, is ready for like one really dominant, huge season. And I think even off the back of last season was incredible, but I think she'll go and one further again, I reckon, this year, which is pretty exciting. Because I think she's amazing, an amazing.
That's crazy because she sets the bar so high as it is.
Oh, exactly. So I definitely think she will. And obviously, along with Prez, like that whole midfield just keep building each other up and constantly, competing with each other, but in a healthy way. So I think they improve each other all the time, which is pretty cool and great for us for sure. And then I hope to see Gabby Featherston actually have a really good season this year and get some games under her belt. And play some solid footy. Unfortunately, she injured herself when she was hitting her peak, I reckon. So she had a bit of a rough season again. But I hopefully fully fit this year, and hopefully she'll go really well.
And of course, there's 2 new recruits in the form of both Bridie and Chantel as well, who have shown so much potential, been picked up by the club, will be invaluable resources, I'm sure, over the course of the year. And hopefully everyone that you've mentioned, as well as those 2, just tear it up next year and are all part of the machine that guides us hopefully towards a premiership late next year.
Yeah.
This year now, sorry.
Yeah. Can we just start already?
I guess similar sort of question, but you have the opportunity to look across at the men's team and again, you have that perspective of having followed the club for so long. On the men's side, is there anyone that you feel like is right there or thereabouts and ready to make that big jump as well, going into 2024?
Oh God, that's a great question.
And it's one of those things, because right now, we hear everyone's training the house down. You hear that from every single club, but you start to eventually names start to pop up for whatever reason. Hopefully all for good reasons, but unfortunately there's the occasional injury that is horrible to hear.
Absolutely, yeah.
On the positive side, is there anyone that you feel like just you looked at them over the course of the year and you think, like they're real close?
Oh God, I think Ryan Myers has been outstanding in the past couple seasons now, so I reckon he could do pretty well again. I was hoping that he'd get up there in the BNF. So I'm going to say him. I reckon his ability to find a mark inside 50 is incredible, and I know people bag his kicking sometimes, but I think it's pretty damn good. So I'm going to say him.
Yeah, I think he's exceptional. He was actually one of he might have even been the first guest that we had at the beginning of last year on the show, and he was talking about how the thing that had been identified was, and to you talking about his kicking, the short kick in particular was the real thing that he was struggling with, just because of his technique being as unique as it is. That became a real challenge for him. He just spent all his time working on it, and it showed immediately last year with the way he could pinpoint those targets, whether they were 40, 50 meters away or someone within 20 or so. It didn't matter. And it's a bit of a shame that I think he was done a bit dirty, I think, by the All-Australian selectors.
I agree.
Even to make the squad, let alone the final team. I think he was dudded in both respects. But if he continues to bash the door down again through 2024, then surely that honor is, and it's a personal one. Of course, it's not the thing that you're driving towards. You're driving towards team success, but those honors are nice along the way, and I think it would be well deserved based on what he's delivered so far.
Yeah, I think he deserved it last year, but hopefully he puts in another great season and gets one.
Well, Claudia, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show and to learn about this journey so far. Congratulations on all you've achieved across so many different spaces. And again, from the on-field to the off-field, you're a huge part of the Geelong Football Club, the Geelong community. You're doing an amazing job. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And we look very much forward to what you can deliver, you and the team can deliver next year. If people want to, I guess, learn a little bit more about what you're up to, you as a club, you individually, where should people go?
Hit up our socials, maybe. Cats Women's Instagram page. And the website, lots of articles. Just get involved, really.
Make sure to throw the support. What Claudia and the team have been doing is fantastic over recent years. If you've not been paying close attention, absolutely correct that going into season 2024, because I think there's every chance the premiership success is close. Hopefully that is what eventuates in, far too long. It's going to take far too long for us to get to the season proper. But once that time comes, hopefully we start rolling in wins and steamroll our way towards the premiership. It'd be fantastic to see, and you'll be a big part of that. So thank you so much for the time you've provided today, and to the listeners and viewers as well.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me.
It's been a pleasure. Cats fans, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the Hoops Crew on YouTube. Follow Behind the Play on podcast feeds. So you get access to this episode and a whole bunch more across both of those platforms. There's heaps more to come. Thank you very much for watching. Remain Geelong strong, and I'll see you next time.